All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's just after 2100 on a Friday night. That means it's time for the Brushfire Mind. Glad to have you. My name's Christopher Lowry. I'm your practical vigilante, and I think I might talk about that a little bit tonight. But here's what you came here for tonight. We are doing, this is the Victim De-Canonization Edition. So our topic tonight, we're going to talk about various victim statuses and the ridiculousness of them. All right, we're having problems with Rod there. So I'm going to go ahead and hope that most of my viewers, most of my listeners, remember things like the Mizzou catastrophe last year. Have a little bit of visibility on things like safe spaces and trigger words and all this mess and madness. We've got these colleges, we've got these universities teaching absolute garbage. Now, I'm usually a full-time college student. In fact, I start classes again in a couple of weeks. Y'all that watch the show kind of know me. I'm medically retired, disabled vet. I own an insurance interest. A couple of websites, Obamacare and Georgia.com. You've heard us rail against Obamacare, but hey, my customers have to have health insurance, and there's nowhere else to buy it, so I might as well be full boat on it. So I'm an expert on the law around Obamacare and the practices involved there. So I go to school. I go to college. I'm working on a liberal arts degree in philosophy right now because, it's fun. I literally go to college primarily because it's cheap entertainment. I just enjoy the absolute dog shit out of it. I get a reading. Somebody else writes me a reading list, saves me the trouble of having to figure out what I want to read. I read a whole bunch of stuff, and then I get to know. What's even better is I get to know what the idiots are reading. I get to learn it. I get to examine it. I get to critique it, and I get to see where they're absolutely abusing it, just fucking it up. I mean, and we've tried to back off the f-bombs on the show. I'm sorry, Rod. You still show this to your buddies, but so I mean, you find stuff going on like you find people reading Socrates, Plato, and Wittgenstein and Kierkegaard, and taking it way out to the left, and just completely getting it wrong. Wittgenstein and Kierkegaard are not the best examples. The professor that I dealt with those with was fantastic, brilliant guy. And I have him next semester, and that's going to be fun. He and I have a good rapport. In fact, I'm going to tell y'all a story about Professor Yankee. So Dr. Yankee and I in class with a bunch of other people who honestly may as well not have been there. We were discussing Heidegger on being in time and Heidegger's explanations. Heidegger's the Nazi philosopher, and his examination of the philosophy of being is just fascinating. And he talks about one of the things Heidegger's famous for is making up words. He talks about the thingliness of objects. He talks about the equipmentality of objects, and we were talking about that one day, and one of the concepts that we were trying to digest and trying to get the students around us to understand, because one of the downsides to the habitual past that I have is all the stuff that I read in college is stuff that I've read recreationally in the past. Kierkegaard, Wittgenstein, Descartes. But we're dealing with this, and we're trying. He and I are both trying to make the point understood, where Heidegger's explaining that a thing can only be understood to be what it is. It can only have being and exist relative to that thing's relationship to the world in which it exists. The example that Heidegger uses is a pencil. A person cannot understand what, oh, I've got a Sharpie, but that's our pencil today. A person cannot understand what a Sharpie is unless that person also understands in context that it's used to write on surfaces. So a person must also understand in context this object contextually is involved in the process of writing on surfaces, which means that before that, they have to understand that it's possible to write on surfaces and that there's a good reason to have to do that. So the professor breaks out an example. He says, okay, how about this? Has anybody seen the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy? And I'm the only one in the room other than the professor that's seen The Gods Must Be Crazy, because we're surrounded by a bunch of, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. No, they've never seen the movie. Hopefully you guys have seen it. Steve, have you seen it?
I've seen bits and pieces, but it's been 20 years.
Okay, so here's the basics. In The Gods Must Be Crazy, we have this uncontacted tribe. They're just tribesmen somewhere in the middle of Africa. It's never real specific as to where. And a small aircraft flies over. Now, these are people who have never seen an aircraft, never been contacted by the outside world. And this aircraft flies overhead. And it's an aircraft of the sort that flies low enough to fly with the window down so you could smoke, right? Back when it was still possible to smoke in airplanes.
Yeah,
the pilot flies overhead and he throws an empty Coke bottle out the window, and the Coke bottle lands in a patch of sand, doesn't shatter, and the locals pick it up. And this is a thing that they've never encountered. So now they have this Coke bottle. Now, when I say Coke bottle, every American knows exactly what I'm talking about. But imagine you had never heard of Coca-Cola, had never imagined the idea of having liquids stored in a container. Every time you drank water, you walked down to the stream and moved it up to your face.
Right.
So that's what we have. We have this tribe, and the Coke bottle gets dropped on them, and they are completely incapable of understanding what the object is because they are utterly devoid the context of its equipmentality. They do not have the meanings of the other things that are related to it in order to give the thing itself meaning and thereby understand it. Mm-hmm. So, we kind of have that conversation, and then I just couldn't help myself. I looked at the professor and I said, you strike me as the sort of nerd that has probably played the Fallout series. Now, for Rod, the Fallout series is a series of video games that take place after a major nuclear war. And in the story world, the game takes place in it's post-apocalyptia. There's raiders, there's mutants, there's monsters, there's zombies, there's ghouls, there's big monsters, there's you run around and shoot bad guys and build cities and trade, and it's a first-person shooter, gigantic open-world game with a fantastic universe. And what's really cool aesthetically about the game is that the world the game takes place in is incredibly vicious, incredibly brutal, and incredibly dark. But all of the remnants of the world prior to have this kind of Leave It to Beaver 50s motif with the Fat Boy Burgers logos and stuff like that, the simple cartoon character drawings on warning labels. Anytime you interact with a piece of technology, a radio or a computer or something, it's all done in those 1950s diner boy motifs. So it's this, that's all very upbeat and happy and bright and shiny and pretty and pretty colors, which creates this wonderfully iconoclastic aesthetic for the game. Well, in the game, the currency they use is bottle caps. Well, and this is why I brought it up in the philosophy class, the interesting thing about the bottle caps in this story world is it is not that people no longer have the context, no longer understand the context that made these things have a usefulness, that caused these objects to be equipment, but rather the context which made these things useful previously, while known, no longer exists. There's no longer a bottling factory that's making bottles of soda pop and putting caps on them. But the caps exist in the world and have no other use at all except as currency or shrapnel. I'm sure we could think of some other things, but in the game, the only things you can use them for are currency or shrapnel. And so I sprung that one on the professor, and we had in fact, I've got an audio recording of that conversation. It was pretty fun. Because, yes, I totally had his number. He was absolutely the sort of nerd that would have played that game, and he did. Now, and that's all just one big track down the road from the safe space situation. Except for this. We're in this room with these 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. And that concept just doesn't strike me as that hard to process. This is a marker. When I tell you that this is a marker, you know that this is an object which has a use, and you know what that use is. And you even have enough external context to visualize and imagine additional uses beyond the immediate, obvious writing on a piece of paper. Oh, I can mark pipe with this to bend it when I'm installing an electrical harness. I know, I've seen me do it. Hey, I can mark 2x4s with this, so I cut them in the right place. Oh, I can draw on a wall with this and make big art that'll just stay there. It's an object that has uses, but it is only understood as that object so long as you understand what those uses are. In this room with these 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, and that apparently was just too much to process. That was just too much. So, that is how we have come to this world of safe spaces, wherein a sliced minority, a slice of majority, just over 50% of all college students polled in the last year have said that they would be comfortable. In fact, they think it's necessary that we abridge the First Amendment, that the freedom of speech should be subordinated to the fear of hate speech, that people should actually be told not to say things, and that should be enforced by law. That's where we live with this victim space thing. Mm-hmm. So, among the spectrum of victims, we have the culture appropriation crybabies. We have the safe space crybabies, which the safe space are pretty much all of them. They're all crying about the safe space thing. But we're going to dig on fat victims, slut victims, black victims, gay victims, poor victims, ready? Rich victims, religious victims, this absurd claim that 1 in 3 American children is what they call food insecure.
Where did that? I haven't heard that term.
Oh, yeah.
Let's keep adding the syllables until nothing has any feeling anymore, shall we?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not suffering from food insecurity.
Neither am I. I had rice and chicken this evening.
I done moved down here where the food is grown.
Yep.
And this phenomenon that you're talking about, I believe I've seen this phenomenon back before you were born. That's back when white people run everything. And if a black man came up and got too close to a white woman, they freaked the hell out. I'm old enough to have seen the separate but equal water fountains and the water fountain signs and all that kind of stuff. It looks to me like they want to have some separate but equal action going on.
Mr. Hanks back there laughing at you.
That ain't Mr. Hank. Mr. Hank's over here laughing.
Oh, yeah.
This is Mr. Jerry.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Jerry, he came over and we were listening to the country music videos, and it came time for the show, and he's been watching y'all show with me on the next day.
Oh, okay. Well, what do you think of the show?
It's great.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You see, we're holding down the bald-headed side. You got 3 bald-headed dudes in the house over here.
What had me confused?
Well, it's that, and Mr. Hank's always sitting forward and kind of looking away.
That's
I
true.
just saw another bald-headed dude, and I thought, I don't think I've ever seen him look at the camera before.
I done switched it up on you. Me and Mr. Jerry, we get talking about y'all stuff. Mr. Jerry's did a career with Georgia Pacific or something like that, with trees.
Yeah.
The tree huggers don't like him at all. He's cut down more trees than they've ever seen.
That's one thing I'm arguing with about the whole recycle movement, green movement and stuff. People talk about all the printer paper and all the cardboard and stuff. So you don't realize we're not deforesting South America for paper. So you do realize these are gigantic farms that are renewable resources that make paper, right?
Yeah,
To understand.
but they need a safe space if they was to go walking through one of them little roads.
No lie. I see some
I
warehouses.
want to get them some stilts because they might come across one in their timber rattlers or one of them their animals that lives in the woods, because they things in the woods that bite you. Let me tell you something. I got to looking. Megan Kelly did a thing about the safe space thing, and they get in their safe space and then they start dialing people up on the phone with their death threats and shit. yeah, they're having a crisis, all right. What they need is their little asses whooped.
I'm a beer drinker. I see it.
You're a beer drinker, you said?
Beer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm on the coffee tonight.
Now you're sitting here this philosophy shit, and I knew the Coca-Cola bottle was going to come falling out of the sky.
Yeah, I know you know.
Damn,
Really,
Coke. It's a waste of Coca-Cola. You're supposed to take them back and get a nickel. No. That was over before you were born too. I used to get money off Coca-Cola bottles if someone
It's funny. No, when I was in Maine, we got a nickel off our bottles. And if you could find somebody to take you down the street to New Hampshire, you could get 12 cents.
Okay. All right. We're talking about big time. That reminds me of a Peter Gabriel song right there. Mm-hmm. Let's just back it up to 1980. What year were y'all born?
76. I remember Peter Gabriel. You're not going to fool me that easy.
That song came out in 1980. Sure did. Now,
The big time, that was 85, wasn't it?
maybe it was. Who cares? Just because I don't footnote as good as I used to doesn't mean
I was here for 85.
Okay.
I was here for that year.
I used to Sunshine of Your Love.
Now you're edging on the beginning of my time, yeah.
That's the one that I like. When I was little punk floating around with no shoes on and stuff like that, it was Cream singing songs like that, and Hippies was in Hippie Town. You know what I mean? And now they're all conservative Republicans now. Just ask them. Yeah, they're not voting for fucking Hillary. They had to go to Vietnam. You think somebody went to Vietnam and vote for Hillary Clinton?
You know what my biggest
He had to go to Vietnam. He went to
Vietnam. The biggest problem with conservative Republicans is, honestly, that they're so damn liberal.
Oh yeah,
Just so far left.
let me get. I need a big piece of paper that says memo on it so I can give it to you like I used to. Look at that. I'm gonna serve it up proper too. Look at him. I watched it all. I watched it on C-SPAN, so I didn't have to listen to all them other people talk. I watched it, and the band was mighty good. And then they came on. The preacher was sitting here. The preacher came over to the house, and he was sitting here with me about the time that the cruise people was trying to get a rule change on that first day. And he's like, is this really happening? I go, yeah, man. Check it out. He's like parliamentary procedure, but. I was like, it'll be all right. You know what I mean? And I was just there going, you knew I was going to be sitting here just grieving the band, waiting for something to mess up. So yeah, I hadn't put the F word out there.
Yeah, it's Rod. My old man said he couldn't watch the show because we dropped too many F-bombs on the first couple episodes, and you said something about wanting to show it to some people, and every now and then, if I get my fire cooking, I have a hard time keeping those F-bombs under wraps because I just spent too much damn time with the infantry.
Like
they don't know any other words.
Your daddy knows all them wordy dirts. He was a command sergeant. Right?
Oh, I know he does. And he doesn't want to hear them, and I don't blame him. But when you're hanging around a bunch of infantry soldiers, they use the F word like it's their Pokemon name.
Well, they sell an air horn for $1 at Walmart. It's one of them loud damn things. You can just like punk that instead of saying the F word.
It's the same strike to it, though.
It'd be one heck of a blast. You know?
I need a censorship button right here that I can hit to beep when I want to say the F word. And every now and then you just see me do this.
Is there an option on that control panel to run this through a 7-second dump delay?
I don't know.
Just spray some oxygen and set it on fire.
I won't do it. If I'm going to drop an F-bomb, if I'm going to drop an F-bomb, I intend for the audience to hear it, because if we are anything on this show, we are supporters of the First Amendment.
Absolutely.
And if we're anything other than that, it's the Second.
Well, does YouTube allow you to edit the video at all?
Yes.
Well,
and I can always dump the video off on my machine and edit it here, which I need to do a lot of, but time, baby, time. Okay, we've got 3 viewers. Let's say something interesting instead of talking about our show.
Safe space thing we're supposed to be on. We were off on attack here.
Yeah, let's dig into the safe spaces again.
The safe space, to me, a safe space would be some place you hide in the house, keep somebody from shooting you.
Yes.
Safest place is behind the sights, yes.
Yeah, my safe space, exactly. My safe space has always been the buttstock. That's where I kind
of wink at right before you pull the trigger, right?
Yep. And the whole time I was in Afghanistan, that's where I kept my Cuban cigar.
In the buttstock.
In the buttstock. Because it's a nice hard cylinder thing. You stick I don't need a cleaning kit while I'm out walking around.
Careful. People are going to think you're a Clinton.
Oh, no. Well, I would never so sully one of my precious stogies.
Well, yeah, but that's not the way that statement could have been taken. I'm just saying.
Well, there's a couple of other concepts. There's the hipsters, and then there's the dubstep. And I'm not up to speed on hipsters and dubstep.
Dubstep, we're pretty sure is messages from outer space that were supposed to be aliens communicating, and somehow we found a way to dance to it.
Okay, so let me go get some Luna Full and some KY jelly and be hooked up.
So, Chris, we're talking about the idea with these safe spaces and where they were implemented and things like that. What brought this all about? Were you able to dig that out as to where the kind of the ground zero was?
No. The safe spaces have just kind of organically generated around these whine and liberal protest kids, and basically what it is when they set up a safe space, what they do is a bunch of people who have a particular interest pick a place, and it's usually a place that other people want to be and already are, and they go in and demand that their particular victim status be respected in some way. Usually it's as innocent as just demanding that everyone check their First Amendment at the door. But that's kind of where that all started. The safe spaces themselves, I guess I misspoke when I said let's dig into those. I want to talk about
The mentality?
the victimhood mentality, the whole victimhood cycle thing. How many precious little snowflakes can we possibly have? And one of the things I just wrote somebody was asking me about something on Facebook, and I wrote something at them about the hypocrisy of the left. Here, I'm gonna drag it over so I can look at it, and I'm gonna tell y'all about it.
Oh, get fancy.
Come on,
I think
Butch.
we're touched on this before in other shows too, but I think it does warrant its own attention. Simply the hypersensitivity to everything. Somehow, people that are taking classes in American history and U.S. law and things, somehow we all miss the part in the Constitution where it says you have a right to not be offended.
Oh, you're microaggression.
That's the 38th Amendment, right?
Something like that, yeah. Oh, I don't need to present. I promise. I didn't have that many thoughts.
Wait. I've
heard that there's some microaggression people that get offended at stuff that nobody has any clue about what they're offended about. They just.
Hey, hold on just a second. I just gotta. Hey, Christopher Gamsby, thanks for being on for being with us tonight. We appreciate your patronage.
Absolutely. Anybody willing to watch, we are glad to have you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh,
we're not getting busted for doing this, are we?
If you aren't already on 3 watch lists, you're not trying hard enough.
That's right. That's the rule, baby. That's the rule. Yeah, we've always got at least 2 or 3 viewers, and I'm certain that one of them is the government.
Hi guys.
You know, it's like Tolstoy taught Gandhi, and Gandhi taught Martin Luther King, or something like that, right?
Right.
And now you're supposed to say, attacking them back, right? You know, it's kind of like if I was going to tell a Bible story, it'd be Jonah and the whale and the gourd. But you put all your ingredients in the mix instead of just some of them. And then you forget your problem. So we're going along, and these people are just all upset about stuff, and then there's nonviolence, right? But they don't do nonviolence no more. But they start talking about Martin Luther King. Well, they're not doing nothing he would advocate with this stopping ambulances like I saw.
Well, of course not. He was a damn Republican.
But at the same time, even his marches and things, there was a sense of order to what MLK did that brought respect to the movement. The stuff that they're doing now is basically degrading their movement, and they don't even realize it.
Well, nobody wants to run nobody over.
Right.
But the ambulance ought to be able to get through.
That's absolutely it. People still got to get to work. People can care, but they still have to pay bills. I mean, people got to get to the hospital.
So when they set up the roadblock, have they got a safe space over next to the side?
They have some cones up there so you can't cuss at them if they're in the circle.
The safe space pretty much stays on the college campuses. Now, but no, it's good you bring up BLM like that. Let's talk about that a little bit. What was Martin Luther King marching for? He wanted blacks to get treated right, get treated equal. Mm-hmm. In a world and at a time where the discrepancy was very, very real and it was very significant. Okay, I'll give you that. Black Lives Matter is marching and crying that they want the police to stop killing black people. Well, the funny thing about that, the numbers say that there's a lot more white people that get killed by cops, and the vast majority of the blacks that are getting killed annually are getting killed by other black people. Essentially, it's actually gotten to the point, according to the statistics, the data of the last couple of years, essentially it says that the police have become nervous about using force precisely because of the media attention that they've gotten, even in justified shootings, like the Ferguson case, where, I mean, clearly, if a big if a great big strong man reaches for your gun, then yes, shooting him is the correct answer. The analysis on that shoot, the only real criticism that's come out of the legitimate analysis of that shoot is that the officer probably should have shot him earlier. He was justified in shooting sooner than he did shoot. So the thing is, what do they hope to achieve? And here's the problem with that position. If there's not anything legitimate to achieve, then the project, the activity, doesn't have an end state. There's no prospect of victory because they're asking for something that's not achievable.
Right.
MLK, he had very clear goals that were achievable, and many of them have been achieved. Quite arguably, have been very clearly achieved. But when you start talking about underrepresentation, I mean, if a college is not, if 50% of the students in a college aren't black, that's not underrepresentation, guys. Underrepresentation would be if 1% weren't black. And even then, who says that enough young black men and women applied to and were qualified? You know, it may just be that the smart ones were in a different state or whatever.
Well, they've had plenty of them, Ogre, that have applied for prison and they got in pretty well.
Well, yeah, but that's a pretty short application.
Well, yeah, but to listen to people like Hillary Clinton talk, you'd think that they were convicted wrongfully or something. Did they do something wrong to get in there?
No. You go to prison. Yeah, you just go to prison for being black. That's in the Constitution. It's the 13th Amendment. Oh, wait. That's not what it says, is it?
Man, I didn't think the police were putting people in jail that hadn't done nothing wrong.
And I think one of the things at the root of this, just to stick to, without beating up anybody in specifics, there's a lot floating around Facebook because, let's face it, a lot of Facebook and Twitter and things are what we live our lives around at this point. They are our news feeds for all intents and purposes because nobody wants to watch mainstream media, right? But there's a bunch of stuff floating around about several facets of this. One of them is about how much responsibility the media carries for over-reporting individual incidents where it's a one-on-one kind of thing, reporting before all the facts are out that they already know what the thing is, and then in 24 hours, 8 points of a 10-point story have been corrected.
Right. And just real quick to add on to that, Steve, yes, Cade, we can see you.
Yay! I'm glad I didn't start picking my nose or anything.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve. And I want to weigh in on this one as well.
Yeah, let's see if I can form a coherent damn thought for more than 3 sentences. But it's not only the media thing, but also the fact that the initial reaction the media sends out is what the BLM movement seems to seize on, and they seem to take it upon themselves to further the media story, but when they don't even know. Name me one BLM case that has not, in the end, turned out to be something that was a threat to the officer that shot. Now, notwithstanding, we've got a new one with this episode with the fellow with the autistic boy that was shot while he was on the ground, and when he asked the cop why he shot him, the cop even said, I don't know. Dude ought to lose his job, go to jail. That was wrong. You know, but there aren't enough facts in there to make that call completely, but I've got a feeling we're not going to hear much more out of that.
Right. We still don't know what happened there, but as to what you were saying about, and Cade, I'll turn it over to you in just a second, but just real quick, as to what you were saying about BLM kind of jumping on the first news report that pops out without all the facts. It's interesting. If there's a shooting, if the shooter's white, that's in the first report. That is one of the very first pieces of information available. If he's anything else, if he's anything at all else, that won't be released for hours after the incident.
That's right.
I mean, I could pull that out all day. as to the BLM grabbing that first story, it's not just that they grab the first story and run with it. They continue to push it as a narrative after it's disproved. Hands up, don't shoot. They still say that.
Yeah.
They still do that. I wonder if it's not one of those things in that case where most of them don't even know why they say hands up, don't shoot.
At this point, I have to agree with you. It sure seems like a lot of them just seized on it without having any idea where it started.
The guy in Miami, he had a little problem, and he was laying on the ground with his hands up, and they still shot him.
That's what I mean. That one's a different case, but when you look at folks like the Michael Brown incident, there have been so many now I'm starting to get names confused. But like but prior to Miami, like the last 7 shootings that have been a part that BLM has seized on, everything in the end turns out to be some sort of threat toward the officer, outstanding warrants, a bunch of mitigating circumstances which change the narrative completely, and then the news story just drops.
Well, I posted a bunch of them this year, and the ones that I posted, the ones where, oh my God, it's just clear that police officer shouldn't have shot that guy in the back when he was running away from him.
Don't get me, bad shoots do happen. I'm not saying
the dude's laying on the damn ground, and he's got his hands up. He's telling the police that the guy's got a toy truck.
Yeah, he's autistic, and it's over a toy truck. Yeah.
And then they shoot him, and then they put him in handcuffs, and then they say they were trying to shoot the other guy later on. I mean, they got a point. I was like Karl Marx had a point, but he just didn't have a solution. You know.
See, I disagree. I disagree wholly on that, Rod. As I commented on your Facebook post. Initially, when that story came out, all the headlines said "unarmed black man shot by police," which is the first piece of narrative that's going to come out that pushes the movement, right? What we had when you posted about that, and you were adamant that the cop was at fault there. What we had was video before the incident and video after the incident. We had no video of the actual firing.
Right.
And you had what looked to me, and granted, I have personal experience in this, so this was actually the first thought that I had, was not that it was a black man that was being aimed at, but it was the mentally ill person, because that happens a lot. A lot of mentally ill people in the state of whatever their illness is get shot and killed by police all the time. And it seems to me, and like I posited on that post that you made, I believe that he was shooting at the autistic kid, because that was my first thought. They were right there next to each other. The cop had the autistic guy in between him and the guy laying on the ground. And the fact that the cop missed after, what did he fire, 4 times?
3.
He missed 3 times. Okay, well he missed 2 times then, and then shot the guy in the leg the 3rd time. That tells me that the guy was nervous, he was frightened, and ultimately he is unfit for duty. It doesn't mean he has an excuse to shoot, and thankfully in this case not kill, but shoot someone. That doesn't mean that. But it's a cycle, it's a snowball effect. These cops are scared out of their mind right now. And he says that the guy was saying, he's got a toy truck, he's got a toy truck, there's no reason for guns, there's no reason for guns. Okay, yeah, I'll buy that. But this cop is hearing blah, 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 heartbeat, 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 heartbeat.
That's true.
That's all he's hearing. This is a 4-year veteran. As far as I have not heard anything else that has come out about this guy. No other controversy, nothing like that. And it just happens to happen where in the past week and a half, 2 weeks, there have been 8 assassinations of police officers. These guys this is all-out war declared by Black Lives Matter, which was initially based on a lie. And my point is this. Other than the South Carolina incident, where the man was shot in the back while fleeing from the police officer, that was the only incident of these high-profile incidents that has been clear as day. The only one. Alton Sterling was not clear.
Nope.
The one, the Castile was not clear.
That's right.
Michael Brown didn't have anything but the word of a guy who had already been accused, who had already been found guilty of perjury in the past. And the only stories that lined up in the Michael Brown case all said that he rushed the police officer. There was never a hands up, don't shoot thing. So that's why I'm saying with what little bit leaked out of that Miami situation, I refuse to jump on board that. And sure enough, the statement from the police office, this does not mean I believe it 100%. You understand that? This is all hearsay. We do not have video of the actual incident occurring, nor do we have video into the minds of these people involved.
That's right.
But the statement that was made lined up with my first reaction. And of the majority of you and the majority of my friends who think like me on Facebook, I'm the only one who's saying that Black Lives Matter could have some legitimacy if they approached the thing the right way, and if they chose to attack the things that need attacking, and if they recognize the other thing, the other problem, the black-on-black crime that accounted for 90% of the black homicides in 2013. And
statistically, it's 97%.
Well, that's the last one I saw, which was the FBI website from 2013. It was 90.1 something or another. Now, granted, that doesn't count, obviously, officers that have been exonerated in the killing of them. That's obviously not a homicide. It's not going to even factor into that data, right?
Right.
But let's say BLM is absolutely 100% correct out of each case that's come up. That still barely makes a dent in that number. Black-on-black crime is the problem. And when people say all lives matter, I agree that the all lives matter movement is stupid. It misses the point completely. You're not understanding what they're even talking about. If you're saying, well, all lives matter, they're not saying all lives don't matter. Now, the protesters themselves are. I'm talking about the overall the message of the movement is not supposed to be that they're the only lives that matter.
Right.
However, blue lives matter is actually a legitimate parallel to the Black Lives Matter. It doesn't conflict. It doesn't have to conflict, but the way that Black Lives Matter is pushing themselves, everything conflicts with them. Every single thing.
Let's tag that for just a second. That's a common trend among leftist activist organizations. Is you cannot have let's look at the transgender thing for example. Just be basically saying that you're not comfortable using the bathroom with being in the same bathroom with somebody who's the opposite gender in public. That's, according to the activists, that's the same as saying that you hate all transgenders. Obviously, it's not the same. That's a ludicrous position. For the Black Lives Matters guys, if you say I support blue lives, I support the police. If I see a police officer struggling, if I see a police officer who's been shot in the street, I'm probably going to draw my weapon and come help him out. I'm probably going to take matters into my own hands and do what I can to help him stay alive, because he's a cop, and I'm sorry, the balance of probability says that he was right. Now, one of the things that kind of throws fuel on this fire is every incident is reported as if it's part of this massive global pandemic. Mm-hmm. Again, think about the transgender bathroom situation. The way that jumped up and down Facebook until the gorilla got shot, people were losing their minds, and you'd think that every third person that walked into either bathroom should be going into the other one or whatever. The way it was running up and down, you'd think that a third or half of the people in America are transgender, and that's just not the case. They're 0.3%. They're a teeny tiny little sliver, and that's one of the problems with this whole victimhood thing. And that's why I wanted to do the victim de-canonization conversation. That we should ridicule them not for being different in some way. We should ridicule them for adhering to a victim mentality. I don't give a shit if a man wants to wear a dress and go dancing around, but sweetheart, I don't owe you nothing.
Well, I was going to say, no offense, the transgenders have been around since the dawn of clothing at some point. Obviously, it wasn't there. I can't give you the first guy that or a girl that ever did it and dressed as someone of the opposite accepted gender role outfits. But the main thing is, no one ever had a problem with this until like a year ago. All of a sudden, somebody thought they had to ban someone from using their bathrooms. Man, you don't know who you're in beside. It makes absolutely no sense to me, which we've addressed this in past episodes. The fact that it was even made an issue has almost made a mockery of who the people are to begin with, which should have never happened. Who they are is not that big a deal. I don't care which bathroom they use. I don't understand why this has become a big thing, and it's where the insane part of the right for, as everyone wants to term the religious right and things, because transgendership is wrong, because homosexuality is wrong, all these things. No, we should just keep hiding them away. That kind of stuff for their lawmaking is why I want smaller government, why I don't want religion in my government, why the rule of the majority should be shunned for the rights of the individual. I think that brings it into light a little more than anything, because the attack came with trying to keep people from using your bathroom. Who called attention to the fact that there were transgenders using public bathrooms and all of a sudden it was an issue? I don't know. But the first shot fired was people tried to pass laws to keep transgenders out of the bathroom other than what they were plumbed for, so to speak.
I'm not sure about that.
I'm pretty sure it is.
The activists popped up the way the activists popped up around that whole thing, it's hard to tell who, it almost feels like a chicken or the egg situation.
Yeah, you're right.
Because and part of it is after the SCOTUS decision on gay marriage, we had a lot of gay rights activists doing interviews saying things like, "Yeah, we feel kind of down now because okay, we got gay marriage now, and well, so much of our identity has been wrapped around being an activist group, being engaged in doing these things politically and so on and so forth, and that's all just that whole part of ourselves has just gone away." And as soon as I heard the first ones, and there were several that did that, several of the big activists made statements like that, and as soon as I heard the first one, I just thought, Jesus, what do you want?
I'm so full of angst, and I have to have somewhere to angst.
That's what I have to have something to angst about, or upon, or something. Yes.
Okay, can I mention the most recent?
Bring it on.
I want to bake a cake for somebody, right? Or I don't want to bake a cake for somebody, right? If I don't want to bake a cake, and somebody wants me to bake them a cake, and they can cause me all kinds of trouble, and I end up being economically destroyed because I didn't want to bake a cake, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, what's his name? Trump the other night was trying to play a song, right? Oh no, you can't play the song now.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty poignant post.
You got to bake us a cake, but you can't play the song.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a double standard going on. It's double standard always means hypocrisy, right?
Yes.
One guy's going to have we're going to have everything good, and you're going to have everything bad.
That's the Obama compromise. I get everything I want, you get nothing you want, everyone's happy.
Right.
But there were how many groups? Disney, Netflix, a few musicians, all those came out and did all this stuff about how they were going to refuse to film movies or play concerts or do anything like that in any state where they allowed the Religious Freedom Restoration Acts to go through. And it just, okay, so in order to protest the idea that a business owner has the right to refuse service to anybody for any reason. By the way, if you don't have the right to refuse any service to anybody for any reason, then I better see every damn business out there lose the no shirt signs, the no shirt, no shoes, no service signs. I better see every one of them remove all their no pets signs. I better see every one of them remove all their no weapons signs. Because if you cannot refuse service based on anything, then you can't refuse service based on anything.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's an all or nothing kind of rule. It truly is.
Go down to Disney World and start parading around, doing all kinds of weird stuff, and see if they don't corral you. They're gonna make you behave when you're on their property. It's their property.
Well, that depends on who you're representing.
Well, now we're talking private property laws, which is, once again, refusing service for any reason. Private property, private storeholder, my opinion, libertarian touted in the title bar down here, you should be free to do what the hell you want to with your business. If you don't want to serve people of a certain type, they have every right to tell everyone, hey, don't bother to give him your money. He doesn't like us. And then maybe if there are enough of you around, he goes out of business, and then someone who's not an asshole will open a business doing the same thing.
Well,
right.
Rod's point is solid, though. He's talking about Disney keeping you in check. And Rod and Cade, you started to kind of, you sounded like the two of you were about to butt heads, but I think you're both on the same page.
No, I wasn't arguing with
okay.
Rod. I wasn't arguing.
Yeah, if you go to Disney, if you go down to Disney and you're a dude and you go parading around in a little bikini and a rainbow feather boa, you're fine. But
right.
I dare you to wear the T-shirt I got Daddy for his birthday a few years ago. Has a Ma Deuce on the back of it. Says "Listen to your Ma." There's a Browning M2 50 caliber machine gun on the back of it. It says "Listen to your Ma." That's I love that T-shirt. I got too fat to wear mine.
Then you're just a walking terroristic threat.
Yeah.
It's a trigger shirt.
And of course, if somebody says that, you just have to say, no, that doesn't make any sense. Terrorists use a dishka.
Yeah.
Well, okay, raise your hand if you've ever joined in a protest or tried to keep somebody from being able to bunghole whoever they wanted or any of that. You see, I've never participated in anything to try and keep somebody from doing what they want to do.
No, that's true.
Okay. I participated in the thing where you hand people voter registration forms. Here, register yourself to vote. Here, take it, fill it out, put it in the mail.
I would know that's the capital for the Guns Across America movement, but that was a pro thing. That wasn't an anti thing.
But you see that these folks are trying to they're trying to use tactics that they think that they have some right to use. They don't have a right to go around economically destroying people, right? They don't have a right to go around punishing people. We live in a republic, and the police power has been reserved to the government and the police and stuff like that, right? Punishment isn't meted out by me to somebody. I don't get to punish somebody. I get to protect myself, but I don't get to on my own decide that they're wrong and I'm going to punish the shit out of them.
Right.
There's always the fine print, though. And in the case of, for instance, baking a cake, first of all, I am a Christian, and in my opinion, you should just bake the friggin' cake.
No
because
kidding.
You're not. Are you vetting every couple that walks in? Are you saying, have you had premarital sex? Have you been divorced? Are you pregnant? You just see that it's a man and a woman. Hell, it could be a transgender and someone else, and you just didn't notice, and you accidentally made him a cake. But anyway,
well,
my point is,
draw though, Kate.
What
if there's still lines to draw though? What if I want my gay wedding cake to have the pillars all around it like the old Roman column type things, but I want them all to be penises, and I want you to do that.
Right. Yeah. There are lines. Yeah.
So,
you say that I will not do this particular thing, just like you would say. So you say you make patriotic shirts, right? And excuse me, Rod, this is for effect. And someone comes in after seeing Team America in their old DVD pile, and they say, "Hey, I want a shirt that says America, fuck yeah, underneath it." Well, you have the right. Well, we make patriotic shirts, but we're not going to do that because we don't want that type of language on our shirts.
So we don't publish it.
Right, you should absolutely be able to do that. There are common decency laws. However, the fine print that I'm referring to is the policies, where I totally and absolutely 100% disagree with forcing someone to give any kind of product to anybody, is that the federal government is involved in it. They should not be involved in it whatsoever. Now, however, if we talked about this before, so I'll try to make it as succinct as Cade Robinson possibly can, which is not very succinct, but I'll do my best.
You wordy.
If you say get a loan from Bank of America to open your business, just like we're selling our home right now, but we have to pay the bank off. because we've only paid a small portion of that home. The bank has actually literally owned our home for the last 6 years, even though we're considered homeowners, right? So if you take out a loan from Bank of America to open a business, and Bank of America has this in their policy, if you take out a loan with us, you may not discriminate against anyone based on religion, based on sexual orientation, based on whatever. That is your responsibility to read that fine print and decide whether or not you want to go with that particular bank. Now, if you take a government loan, then the federal government could have the place to say, it is our policy not to discriminate, and if you take this loan from us, you may not discriminate. If it is your money, if it is your business, I mean, say it's all your money, but you rent out a store. Well, you still have to follow the policy of the strip mall that you open your business at, right? But if it is all yours, for instance, my example last time was if you're a handyman. Well, there's no real overhead there. You already have a Ford F-150. You went out and bought a couple of new tools that you didn't have, so you could better perform your business, right? You probably didn't take out loans to start a handyman business. In that case, if you want to wear a shirt that says Tim's Handyman Service, we don't serve N-words, that's up to you. That's perfectly fine. Don't be surprised if you get decked by someone walking through a place and someone jumps on you and starts beating you up, because there are consequences.
Or you just can't find work because everyone's...
Or you just can't find work. Or someone stands outside, in the case of the cake baking thing, stands outside of your business with signs. As long as they're standing on public property, or they have the permission of the strip mall owner or whatever to stand on their property, hey, you know what? You buried yourself. You did it to yourself.
That's true.
And they said it in the Libertarian Forum on the John Stossel program. I'll be the first one. I believe it was John McAfee that said, "Listen, I'm all for equal non-discrimination, right? And I'll be the first one to join you in line with the pickets, but I'm not going to say that the federal government can tell you whom you can serve in your business." I'm just saying that you have to look at those separate little policies, because unless you truly own 100% of your business, there are discriminatory policies.
Well, and I think that's the whole point, is the fact that this gets into another rabbit hole thing rather than us trying to stay on the whole victimization thing specifically. But it still comes down to, like you said, the federal government, as far as it's not hurting anybody physically, not causing massive, as Chris put it, pandemics of violence and things about this. Most of that stuff is on a very small level, very localized, very, very community policed.
Well,
The fact that the more you do that, the more word's going to get out. And granted, there are probably some places that still live like it's 1940, and they'll get away with a T-shirt like you described. But it's because of the 700 people that live in their town are all going to use that person, and there's not a whole lot of diversity there. But you throw that guy where people that he doesn't seem to appreciate live, he won't do anything, because most people don't feel the way he does.
And he'll get bricks through his window, and he'll get his
that's it. And he'll
vehicle
go
set on fire or whatever.
And that's where he'll stay, and he'll be happy and bigoted and everything. He wants to be away from people that don't mind the diversity.
That's all stuff that I don't think the folks are supposed to be doing. If somebody wears a shirt that's got the N-word on it, you don't need to do anything to him. You need to leave him alone, right?
By law, you have to.
Yeah, I'm not saying it'll happen.
I don't think you got the right to go whoop somebody's butt.
Well, you don't. No,
because we don't have that right. That's where you're punishing somebody for something that we don't agree with. We don't.
Right,
have,
but you're not punishing them. You're saying it's still whatever a person does. If it's not as basic as picketing or boycotting in front of the business without using hate speech or whatever else, that's fine. If someone attacks them based on their T-shirt, the person should be arrested. That's not the way to handle your business. But I'm just saying, you take that risk.
Let me make my overall point here.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We're talking about the victimization thing. That's like a little coat you put on and button it up or zip it up. You see what I'm saying? And they're wanting to play the role of a victim to justify something. Okay? So in order to justify the output that they're planning on outputting, it's convenient to be a victim when nobody's really victimizing you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It adds credence to your story, so to speak.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So, now, who are we attacking here? Are we gonna attack the policeman that actually shot somebody, or are we gonna go over here and find some police that have no idea that something's coming and shoot them?
Right.
Or are we gonna get some white folks that have ever done something to somebody, or are we just gonna go on the interstate and mess with them folks out yonder that ain't ever done anything to anybody? Okay. See, their output that we're getting out of some of these groups is that they go out and they mess with folks that ain't never done nothing to nobody, right? And that's that's one thing that's upsetting to them. They don't think it's right for them to get messed with when they don't believe in what was done to the black man. They don't agree with it. They would be supporters if you just let them. You know, I've spoken to people before, lawyers and people like that. Well, allow people to agree with you.
That's a very good point too, and that's almost another thing I think social media has been rough with is the lack of interchange that way. Nobody grows, everyone argues, but you can have people that agree with you 100%. You can have people that agree with you 75%, but no one wants to discuss the parts they disagree on because that goes away from the meat of the argument. I think we've lost the art of nuance. We've lost the art of true compromise. And I think that alone, because of every little subsect being a victim of somebody's racism, privilege, there's probably 20 or 30 other buzzwords that I'm going to overlook for this. But everyone who has something that is some sort of an obstacle is automatically a victim of something. And I think that's going back to the original point, if you're going to get someone to hear you, it has to seem important. And in order to get the government to enforce what you want to happen, you have to get their attention. You almost have to be a victim to have it happen.
No, I don't think in order for me to make a point and get it across to people that, say, have the power to make a decision on something, I don't believe that I've got to go through all these antics to get to that point. If I was orange, I don't think it doesn't matter. They're not that irrational. You see what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying, but not everyone's taught that. Remember, even my generation, it was taught when you're riding around, if you had to run to the store, back in the day, Pennsylvania didn't have a seatbelt law. And if you were riding, you're the youngest kid in the family's in the middle of the truck seat or something, no seatbelt on, whatever, and oh, there's a cop, get down. So you're taught from a young age that the cops are the enemy. And I think that has become more prevalent over the years because of, well, depending on socioeconomic background, mind you. You take that to stem into something like that. That's when you get the overblown reactions, the lack of building on facts to actually understand the argument you're making. It's much easier just to grab the sign and run and just pick up the chance, right?
Well, let's just assume for a second that the cops are the enemy. Okay? Mm-hmm. If that were truly the case, then that gives you even more reason to be a nice little boy when you're around them. Because if they're the enemy, if they're as bad as everybody says they are, they can just get some dope out of the trunk of their car and plant it on you, and you're going to go to jail, real jail. Which they haven't done anything wrong. If they're the monsters that everybody's trying to say that they are, but they're not the monsters. They don't do that.
You have bad in every walk. There are bad apples in every basket, and that's why I think that the whole overblown media coverage, we're not doing enough to point out the ones that shine in the public service, the ones that actually do serve and protect instead of live by the comply or get shot rule.
This guy that's running the Black Lives Matters, he just wants to get in Congress. Mm-hmm. That's what this is about. He's using a certain set of tactics just the same way Jesse Jackson did.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not.
It's an economic thing with this guy. He's trying to accumulate economics. He's trying to accumulate power. And he's looking for any kind of a way he can to get himself on the TV set.
Which then truly does make the BLM members.
I'm a leader. I'm a leader. You need to vote for me because I'm a leader. And we accomplished things. You know?
Yep.
And
but never let someone build up the argument that everything you did was based on falsehood.
well, everybody and his mama can go around trying to use those kinds of tactics to accomplish things. You know, everybody that's a psychopath has figured out that a government would be a great place to be, to have power, right? And so the government's always got psychopaths that are trying to point. They're looking for a hole in the wall that they can get through, right? If you want to talk about the great big wall, you got people inside that are supposed to be leading, and then you got all these people around, and some of them want to be leaders, and they're trying to claw their way to the top, or crawl over the wall, or crawl under it, or come up with something, some way to get me some power so I can get me made.
Yep.
Right?
Got to get me some of that annual salary and lifetime benefits.
But they don't ever sit there and think for a moment. Well, maybe I'm a little butt turd that doesn't need to have power. You know, because you're going to get a lot of people killed with running your mouth to get this sensationalization crap going, so that you can get to the point. You know, you're cooking with the wrong kind of dough. It ain't gonna do nobody no good in the long run.
Fear is the word that not enough people are talking about.
You're right.
You're not afraid.
Fear is what feeds this. So you say you got the one side, the ones supporting Blue Lives Matter, and then you have the other side supporting Black Lives Matter, and most of the people who are in the mob mentality who are following these are absolutely running against what the narrative, what the message is supposed to be. And what neither one are taking into account is that both of them are looking at an exchange, your average everyday exchange between a young black man and a police officer, as two perfectly programmed robots interacting with one another. And so in order to stay within the what you've been programmed to do, you must follow certain rules. So you are to be the black man is raised by his parents to put his hands at 10 and 2, have his hands visible, and to comply in every way, to stay calm, to you know, don't make any sudden movements, don't reach for anything without explaining first after the officer has asked you to get something. And the officer is supposed to go up there, you know, touch the back of the car, so his fingerprints are there, and he's supposed to walk up with caution, maybe have his gun unsnapped and holster unsnapped, and assess the situation. Okay, this guy doesn't seem to be a threat, and I'm going to explain to him what happened. He's going to cooperate with me, and everything's going to go fine, and it'll be over in a few minutes. What they're not factoring in is fear, and fear makes men do irrational things. Fear makes men act beyond reason. Fear is what causes a drowning man to be 10 times stronger. I mean, I'm making up that number. A lot stronger than he normally would be. So what happens is, cop pulls the guy over. The cop's heart rate is already going because he knows that eight officers have been killed, specifically targeted. But there's a young black man driving this car, and he's breaking the law in some way or another. And he goes up to the car. His heart rate's going up. He already doesn't know, you know, what's happening. He sees the guy shift in his seat like that. He automatically is a little jumpy, even if he doesn't show it physically. And he walks up. The black man, meanwhile, his heart rate is going crazy. He's been taught all his life to fear the police. Right. He can't stay calm. Because he now has chemicals rushing through his body that tell him to run. His instincts his fight or flight instincts have already taken hold, because he has had this thing drilled into his head, and his daddy's been in prison, and his daddy is currently in prison. His brother has died because of a police officer or because of gang violence or whatever else. They're in a world that you and me have never had to live in. And these things are going to clash. He gets nervous, the officer is more nervous. The officer is more nervous, the officer is more likely to grab his gun for any reason. Mm-hmm. With all the experiences, the things going on around him. So my point is that fear drives a lot of these things that get way out of hand that never should have started that way. The media always presents it as, hey, he had a tail light out, and then the cop pulls up, starts yelling at the guy, grabs him, throws him on the ground, and shoots him. And that's how that played out. And that's how we're presented with it every time. Right. They do have a point. The black community, who is upset about young black men being targeted, they have a point. Young black men commit a massive amount of the crime in this country. Young black men who are shooting cops in many of these instances. Well, young black men grew up to do that because they're stuck in this ghetto cycle where they have the mentality and the opportunity is not there. They are. This is why I do not like the term white privilege. I prefer the term minority disadvantage, because it's implying that white people start out with a +2. No, white people start out at a 0. It's just that a lot of your minority community start out at a -1. That's their disadvantage. It's not our advantage. You know, that's making a good guy and a bad guy out of things where that's not the case.
You know, all of them got the opportunity to go to the little church on the corner where they teach people how to deal with these little emotions and stuff like that, but they won't go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you also can't identify with. All right, let me. I'll put it this way.
I mean, they've got an opportunity to go talk to somebody who's college educated 3 times a week. All they got to do is show up, right?
But
they don't care to do that. They don't like.
Oh no, I agree.
They're anti.
But they're bitter.
I'm talking white people too.
Yeah, but the people are inherently selfish. They always believe the best of themselves. They don't want to fit in any system. A lot of people think it's weakness to fall back on some sort of system. But I can tell you, from my personal experience, and I realize this is too much information, but I am what's called bipolar 2. I'm diagnosed bipolar 2 with rapid cycling and with psychotic episodes. They're called psychotic episodes. There is this time when I am so filled with chemicals that I cannot calm down on my own. It has to basically, I have to scream, yell, and break something until I'm so tired that I have to stop. And there's a lot going on in my head that a lot of other people can't understand. And ADD is a part of that. There are many different factors that go into that besides just being bipolar 2, because you're diagnosed based on the dominant features of your mental illness. And I have had more than once, I have had explosions at my house that leaked out into outside, out onto the deck or something. To be perfectly clear, I've never raised a hand to my wife. I've never hurt my wife in any way. I've never even verbally abused her in any way. But she is privy to these incidents. And there have been times where she has been fearful of me getting into trouble and come outside and said, I know you're mad. I understand you're mad. You need to come back inside. You need to come back inside. She's afraid that a neighbor is going to call the cops on me, thinking there's something, that she's in danger or something else. The cops are going to come here. I'm in the middle of a psychotic episode. I get shot and killed because I'm unpredictable. There's no time for her to go grab the pills that I take every day and say, look. And there's no time to go to the officers and change their opinion. If she says, well, he's bipolar, they're thinking, oh, good, all the more reason to shoot him and stop him because I don't understand this thing and it scares me. But I know what I know about it is that he's crazy and he's going to try to kill us. He's a threat to us. And that's exactly the kind of thing that led to the autistic guy being shot at in Miami, and the poor man who was doing everything to cooperate with officers, going out of his way to be calm, put his hands in the air, no reason for guns, explaining the situation. He is a victim. He is an unnecessary victim from what we know. Because it's hard to believe, even without video evidence of what actually happened in the shooting, it's hard to believe that suddenly that guy who was filming cut his camera off, and then the guy who had his hands up jumped up and just started charging the cop. I mean, come on. You know, common sense tells you that the guy most likely did not do anything wrong. But
well,
that's what
I thought. I didn't think that he was going to change his pattern. He was sitting there with
his yeah. I wasn't disagreeing with you, Rod, to begin with. I was saying don't yet say it like it's fact. Don't react emotionally. And this guy was probably shooting at this autistic guy, not at the black guy on the ground.
Well, I jumped to conclusions like I did the same thing when the nuclear reactors were blowing up in Japan. I said it was a design flaw. and that made a bunch of people on Mensa mad because I was saying it was a design flaw. It was a design flaw. It was obvious, right?
Well, and design flaw, think about the term design flaw and apply it to what we're talking about with the mentality of black men, with the mentality of that they grew up with, and the mentality that police, they come in, the police officers come into this thing, they're not just racist. They just don't hire racists. You don't just have a bunch of racist guys who are like, I'm going to become a cop so I can abuse the hell out of every minority I come across. These are guys who start out like the best lying son of a bitch politicians who are in their 60s now started out. I want to make a difference in my community. I want to be a positive influence, blah, 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 so on and so forth. Well, after about 5 or 6 years on the job, their partner's been shot and killed by a young black man. They've been in scuffles, they've been shot at, they've been wrestled with, and who pays the price is John Doe black man who didn't do anything wrong, who got pulled over for a broken taillight. And then this happens, and then it's presented like the cop's just been a villain the entire time. And the humanity is not what's being talked about. And Rod, I know you had to take care of business a second ago, but I was talking about my own experience with mental illness and how scary that is with police officers. But my point is, we're all flawed human beings. Some of us have more obvious flaws than others. And when those conflict with either, in a cop's case, our duties, or in a citizen's case, our compliance with that said cop's duties, things go wrong, and they go wrong quickly. They're humans. The police are human. The aggressors or victims, whichever one it is in whatever case, are humans as well. And those factors are not being talked about. It has to immediately be black or white. As soon as the story comes out, it has to be black or white. It has to be the cop is either the evil and the young black man is the good, or vice versa. Has to be that. Cannot possibly be a gray area. It has to be black and white. Has to serve a certain agenda. Has to be split to the Blue Lives Matter or the Black Lives Matter. Have to take a side. Have to take a side. And what it is both sides are partially right, and both sides are mostly wrong. And that ebbs and flows at any given incident as it comes up.
That's true.
But it's such a fluid thing. It's such a fluid thing. It's such a gray area thing. And you're right, Rod. What's happening is you've instigated, thanks to our wonderful president, who a mutual friend of ours thinks Donald Trump is the one stoking the racial fires, and doesn't understand that whenever Barack Obama comes out and says, Trayvon could have been my son, or when Michael Brown gets shot and he says, this is, we have to stop this racial blah, 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 right?
Wait, we don't know anybody.
Every single time.
I'm sorry. Nope, I know what you're talking about. Sorry. My bad. Every single time
this happens, he comes out. And the funny thing is, when it happened with Castile and it happened with Sterling, he came out and said we have to stop the way the black citizens are being treated by police. When the Dallas shooter shot the day after, you had 3 days in a row, right? Wasn't it 3 days in a row, or it was 3 out of 4 or 5 days?
Something like that. Yeah.
Either way, the events were boom, boom, boom. And when Dallas happened, he comes out and says, well, now you can't judge the whole movement based on this one sick individual who went against the principles. And what he should have said was, guys, some of the blood of these 5 police officers and the other 7 that were injured is on my hands. Because I came out, I created this beast by jumping to conclusions, never rescinding, never coming back on anything that I said based on further evidence. You just didn't talk about it. Once the truth comes out, you just don't talk about it, right? You talk about whatever else the new news story is. He has stoked this fire. He has become a race baiter, no different than Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. He's become another what would be an embarrassment to Martin Luther King Jr. And this is now a movement full of ignorant people with little pepper flakes of people trying to do the right thing, trying to make a positive change. I've seen them interview. I'm sorry, Rod. Give me 1 second. I've seen them interview people involved in BLM. The random people, every one of them have the dumbest things to say. Well, Black Lives Matter, that's all they say. Or, why are you here? Because Black Lives Matter. And one guy will come in and say, F the police. Another person say, F the police. And another person says, y'all brought us over here, and there's no laws that says a white man can't kill a black man. There should be laws that says a white man can't kill a black man. There are laws that say that. It's called murder. Murder is wrong. That's the end of it. That doesn't mean that if a black man is pointing a gun at me, I don't have the right to shoot him. You understand? And yet the whole movement is chock full of these people completely ignorant of the point of the whole thing. Go ahead, Rod. I'm sorry.
Do you remember how a while ago I mentioned Tolstoy and Gandhi? All right, here we go. Gandhi had his way. He had people that were lining up. Remember, they were going to do this little passive-aggressive, non-violent thing, right? And people lined up to his, and they'd walk up and they'd get hit in the head with a stick, and then they'd drag them off. You saw them movie, right? Right? They'd stand up, take their turn, get clubbed to the head by the police that was trying to make them go off. And then they'd drag them off. It made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Okay, look, you go down the road, what happened? Well, we end up having a partition of India into 3 different countries, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and in India, right? And they had to just completely separate two different sets of people based on religion. And that was something that Mountbatten came in, Lord Mountbatten came in, and they kind of looked at it. And next thing you know, they're doing this thing, and everybody who's Muslim is going this way, and everybody who's not goes the other way. Right? And we know that these cats that are running this thing, they're looking for power, right?
Oh, sure.
So where do you think it's going?
It's going to
the trajectory. They're doing what they're going to do to get themselves or on the backs of all these people who are so upset because how many black guys have been shot this year?
560 something.
By the police?
Yes, but that's the last figure that I saw. But the number of them who were unarmed, who were not the aggressor, was minuscule. And you know all of them because they've all been all over television like it's the norm.
Okay, so we got 20 examples.
So high profile, what, 5?
So okay, we got 5 examples in a whole year, or most of the year, in a country of 317 million people, right? It's
650 plus thousand cops.
You know, they're making up an issue.
Yes, out of the 500 and something black men that have been shot by police this year, about 1% of those have been iffy enough on the face of them at the front end to make an issue out of.
To at least warrant investigation.
Of those, one is still at contest.
Well, we 3 are still a contest. Because Sterling and Castile have not, the justice system has yet to move forward.
Right. And I get those two backwards. I don't remember which is which, but I think it's the one in the one that wasn't sitting in the car with the girlfriend and the baby that they smoked pot with.
Was Sterling in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
Well, can I tell you one more point for you?
Okay.
Just one. They're upset because of things that happened in the past, right? And you say KKK and everybody's enraged, right? But that's what they've become. They're using those tactics. They know that when they go in and they incite the way they're inciting, that somebody who's susceptible to all this rage is going to start shooting cops. And they're counting on it. They know that this is. They're counting.
So what were you saying, Chris? Because Rod is absolutely right. You were talking about the percentages?
Yeah. The other one. Not Sterling, but the other one. I thought I was tracking that there was in fact a gun on the scene. He did in fact have a gun in his hand.
One had a gun in his lap. The other one had a gun in his pocket.
Right.
Okay.
Alton Sterling, you in the video, you cannot see the gun that they pulled out of his pocket. The news media, except for Fox News, cuts off the video right after the camera goes off the scene, but the camera actually comes back and shows the cop pull the gun from his pocket. But the media cuts it off before that.
Right.
And now it is hard to believe that two grown-ass men that are as big and trained, well-trained as those two officers did not have enough handle of the situation, that they could have stopped one man's right arm from reaching into his trousers in a prostrate position and pulling a gun out. It's hard to buy that, but it doesn't mean that's the case.
Now, can I pose a solution? Just one. When the police roll up, they're going to take control right away, right? We're here to take control. We're the police. We're going to take control right now. And you're going to do what we say right now. Now, what they need to do is just kind of drive up and then just kind of get out of the car and say, "Sir, would you come over here and stand in front of the car?" Right? Much less, demanding. Just come on over here.
Well, they were told that there was a man with a gun standing outside a business. They were already prepared.
Well, okay, so look around for a second. Is there a man with a gun?
Well, I think the whole thing is, Rod, that's going to be an intellectual exercise in this because this has already happened. And it's kind of calling...
I'm talking about for the future.
There are 1,000 ways you could approach it. You look at high-speed cases and things. Everybody's adrenaline's up. Bad things happen after high-speed cases.
And there are 1,000 variables.
Yeah. Y'all pointed that out to me. Ogre, doesn't the military teach people not to have high adrenaline when they're trying to fire their weapon?
Well, all right, Rod. When a police officer gets up to, and I come from a kind of a law enforcement family, when he gets up into a situation, he has to make certain assumptions. He has to look at body language. He has to go by what he's been told when he pulls up to the scene, which in this case was that there was a man brandishing a weapon outside of a convenience store. And so he's already jumpy. His heart rate's already going, like I was talking about before. They come up, their guns are already in their hands. They think they see that person. They fit the description. They pull their guns on that person and say, "Get on the ground." Now that person is supposed to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm serious about to put the hands on the wheel and all this stuff.
Right.
Oh, I'm
saying
saying
where you're supposed to fight it is in court, not on the scene, because on the scene gets you shot.
What I'm saying is just step 30 feet from the police car, and we're gonna walk over and have a chat with y'all. Y'all cool with that? And if they act like you're cool with it, that's one thing. But they're gonna have to change the way they engage a little.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll address that, but I mean, we don't know when they pulled up what was the position of that. Where were they in accordance with that Camry that had the blood on it by the time the incident was over? How much could they see? How was the lighting in that area? What was the guy? So many different things that we don't know, and there's no right way to go about. There's no proper procedure to go about doing something that requires you to maintain your own life to make sure you get home to your family that night.
You were getting on to me earlier. Wait a minute, you're getting on to me earlier for jumping to the conclusion, right?
I'm not jumping to any conclusions. I'm presenting possible variables.
I'm not mad at what I'm saying is that the cops don't have the ability to jump to the conclusions, and they can buy themselves some more time so that they can allow their brains and their sensory devices to accumulate something that they can work on.
It's that fear, though. Goes back to that fear.
Doesn't matter.
That fear that makes them do things that goes beyond their training, goes beyond their lawful obligations, and beyond what the law limits them to.
Well, then maybe the 911 dispatcher shouldn't tell them there's a gun. They should just say, "We need you to show up at an address."
Right. But then they're not prepared. Then they get out of their car all leisurely. Hey, we got a call. Can you talk to? And then the guy pulls a gun, and before you know it, you're both dead. Bleeding out on the ground, and you haven't even got a chance to reach for your revolver yet.
When they're apparently prepared is when they're the least prepared. Is what y'all are saying?
No, I'm just saying there's 1,000 variables.
They're trying to respond to a radio call without eyes on. They know a guy's got a gun. They're trying to respond. If it was me, somebody tells me there's someone in my backyard with a gun, I'm not going to go out there. Hey man, what you doing? It's not going to happen.
Do you have a gun? Do you in fact have a gun?
Well, I didn't say that you have to get over there where he's at.
Well, that's. But
All right.
That's Go ahead, Chris.
All right. Here we go. We're way off topic here.
What's the topic?
Exactly.
We're way off topic, and we're pretty far over time too. So this conversation that we're having right now, this is easily its very own little show. So we're going to go ahead and call it for the night. It is 22:30 on a Friday night. This has been the Brushfire Mind. Thank you so much for joining us, Christopher Gamsby. Again, appreciate you being in the audience. Do leave me some comments on Facebook or on YouTube or on Twitter. Let me know how we did. Follow us on Twitter. We're at Brushfire Mind on Twitter. We have the website, brushfiremind.com. Sorry, brushfiremind.com. No indefinite article. And catch us on Facebook, Brushfire Mind on Facebook, and go check out our Patreon page. We need some people to donate so we can start doing some of the larger production quality videos and start really attacking the enemy in the street, bringing it out there and walking around with a GoPro and questioning the madmen where they congregate. It'll be lots of fun. But we need your dollars, we need your help, we need your support. We appreciate the love. We appreciate you watching the show. And as always, I leave you with this. If you will build a man a fire, you will keep him warm for the evening. But if you will set a man on fire, he will be warm for the rest of his life. Good night.
Good night.